Happy New Year! Welcome to 2026. So, it's my tradition to do a sort of an overview of the year that's just by when we start the new year, so I'm going to talk about 2025. Now, I'm not sure how long this one's going to last, probably about as long as last year, if not less, because I've not really seen that much. I'm going to broaden it out to kind of things that are new to me, because if we just use like things that actually just came out in 2026, I'd have about 3 things to talk about. As it is, there's only about 7, so I'll do my best. Now, one of the first new things that I saw in 2025 was early in the year was a little 80s movie called Soul Survivor. I've done a separate review of that on this channel if you want to go and check that out, so I won't reiterate too much. I'd never heard of this movie. It got a good review from a YouTuber. That doesn't necessarily mean anything these days, because sometimes sometimes I don't agree at all. But I really enjoyed this one. It was a no-name cast, but it was a really effective little chiller. That it's basically like a Final Destination, basically, sort of more of a slow burn dread sort of movie than a ridiculous OTT deaths. Basically, it was about this woman who's the sole survivor of a plane crash, and she's got survivor's guilt and that, but then she starts to think that she was supposed to die and that death is going to come for her anyway. I really enjoyed this movie. It was very effective. It was a great little low budget but very well made and very well acted 80s horror. I really enjoyed it. Second on the list, another one that I've done a separate review of. Check it out. Alone in the Dark, which was an 80s horror. I only heard of it, I think, about the mid to late 2010s when it came out in America by the Scream Factory, but it took me till last year to kind of get a hold of the Blu-ray, because the Scream Factory one was just insanely expensive for one 90-minute movie, and I could never justify it. I managed to get like a European one that released that was considerably cheaper, and it's kind of surprising that it took so long to have heard about it, considering the caliber of the cast. You've got Donald Pleasance, you've got Martin Landau, Jack Palance, and even Dwight Schultz. Why have I never heard of this movie before, like the mid to late 2010s? It was a very effective psycho horror thriller. You basically got these mental patients that escape from their asylum, 2 of which are, Jack Palance and Martin Landau. And they've got it into their head that their new doctor, who's played by Dwight Schultz, has murdered their old doctor, even though he's actually just taken a job somewhere else. And they basically set out and start terrorizing him and his family overnight. So this is a really effective horror thriller. Again, really underrated. Really, really liked it. How did I never hear of this? I don't know what the release status was in the 80s. Maybe it didn't come out on VHS or something. But I'm really staggered that it took so long, especially with a cast like that, for me to even hear about it, let alone see it. But as I've often said, the 80s are the gift that just keep on giving. Now, the next thing I saw was rather more recent. It wasn't actually 2026. I think it was 2023 or 2024. It was an Australian horror flick called Sting. Basically, it's about this little girl who's living in an apartment block. She finds this unusual looking spider in her apartment and decides to keep it as a pet. Unfortunately, this really is no ordinary spider, and it keeps growing, and then it starts snacking on the apartment residents, basically. I really enjoyed this. I'd never heard of it. It was on Netflix, I think, and it was like one Saturday night, and I couldn't think of what to watch, and I was flicking through Netflix, as you do, and I thought, I'll give this a try. I had no expectation. In fact, I had every expectation that I would probably turn the bloody thing off after about 15 minutes or something, and instead I got hooked in very quickly, and I was kept hooked for the next 90 minutes or so. A very effective little Aussie creature feature. I really enjoyed it. Highly recommended. Now, the next new thing I saw in 2025 was another 80s movie, shock horror, called Murphy's Law. Basically, it's like a mid-80s Charles Bronson canon thriller with kind of slasher elements to it. Charles Bronson is a grizzled cop who finds himself forced to go on the run when he's framed for murder by this female serial killer who's out for revenge on him. I think he previously put her away, and she's out for revenge on him and everybody else that helped put her away, and she's kind of bumping off not just the people she's got a grudge against, but also Bronson's friends and family to basically frame him for it. I really enjoyed this. Heard of it a couple of times. I never heard very good things, so it took me a while to get it, kind of cheap on Blu-ray. I saw the trailer, I think, and it looked okay, so I'm like, okay, I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a very effective little 80s thriller with some action, bit of pseudo horror. Really, really entertaining. I recommend from me. Now the next thing, I don't think this video is going to take very long, you know. The next thing is actually probably the first new actual 2026 thing that I saw. The only film I saw at the cinema. The first film I've seen at the cinema since Deadpool and Wolverine, because I lived like an hour away on the bus, and it's like bugger that for a lark. I happened to be in Chipping Norton, visiting relatives and having a week holiday before my move. And they actually have a little cinema. It's ironic. It takes a bloody hour to get from where I was in South Yorkshire to get to a nearest cinema. A little thing like Chipping Norton's got a bloody cinema on the high street. And I happened to be there, and I thought, well, I might as well, seeing as it's here, you know. Only problem was finding something to watch, because there's really not a lot these days. I ended up going to see The Roses with Benedict Cumberbatch and Olivia Colman, which is a remake of the 80s Danny DeVito, Michael Douglas, Kathleen Turner, War of the Roses. I have no idea why it needed a remake, and it certainly wasn't as good as the original. I didn't mind it, though, to be honest. I kind of liked it. I mean, I've had some terrible experiences at the cinema in recent years when I have gone. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1. I was done with that movie by the 100-minute mark, and then there was another fucking hour of it. And I'm just sat there going, oh God, is it over yet? The First Omen was one of the most excruciatingly boring things I've ever felt compelled to sit through at the thing. I was actually contemplating walking out. It was so boring and so bad. So compared to them, this movie was actually perfectly entertaining. Was it the greatest movie in the world? No. Was it as good as the original? Probably not. Was it as edgy as the original? No. But as a kind of British middle-class comedy, it was fine. It passed the time. I was amused. I didn't get bored. I wasn't wishing for death while it was on, so that's a win for modern cinema in my book. Now the next thing that was new, I think it was this year. Yeah, it was earlier this year, wasn't it? Surely. Can't have been last year. And I didn't watch all of it. Was Dexter Original Sin. I actually saw most of this, what I did see, on the plane, and I kind of tried carrying it on when I was off the plane. I couldn't get past episode 4, I think. This was the prequel to Dexter with a complete recast of all the original characters, which is a real tough sell for me. I find it difficult enough to accept when you recast one major character in a show, because it just breaks my suspension of disbelief and immersion. And recasting the entire bloody cast, that's a tough sell. Mazuka was probably the best of the recasts. He kind of looked like him, and he acted like him, and he had the laugh down pat. I kind of started to warm to Deb a little. She doesn't look anything like Jennifer Carpenter, but she did at least act and talk like Deb. I think her voice was kind of very similar to Jennifer Carpenter's, probably deliberately. Most of them I just couldn't take seriously, because it's just like cosplay. It just seemed like actors cosplaying to me. But the biggest problem was I just didn't find it very interesting. I just found it kind of boring. We've the original show showed us the backstory we needed to know in flashbacks during its original run. So basically now you're just introducing things and making things up and retconning stuff that doesn't actually fit. okay, and with no offence, an inferior cast that I can't necessarily take seriously. I managed to struggle to about episode 4. Like I said, I watched a couple on the plane just to try and pass the bloody time. I was not a fan. I didn't finish it. I didn't get halfway through. It's just kind of boring. I'm sorry. And the last new thing that I watched, the last old new thing that I watched in 2026 was Dexter Resurrection, the kind of new proper one with Michael C. Hall being Dexter and carrying on from the last one, New Blood. Now, lots of people have been having orgasms over it. There's a tiny minority that think it's shit. I was kind of in the middle, on the fence. I don't get the orgasmic or stuff. People going, oh, it's the best season ever. I want to up there with series 4 and blah, 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 blah. Nah, I don't think so. But it was okay. It was better than New Blood. As with New Blood, I'm not sure how rewatchable it's going to be, because New Blood's not rewatchable at all, in my opinion. It had a bit more of the kind of dark comedy than New Blood did. The whole kind of serial killer club subplot was entertainingly ludicrous and brought rather more entertainingly camp than grim and depressing than like New Blood often was. But it still has and Dexter was kind of more like Dexter than he was in New Blood as well. Clearly deliberately. Again, that being said, I can't help but think that the kind of flogging a dead horse somewhat, and there are lots of things I didn't like about it. Spoilers for anybody who's not seen it. I didn't like them bringing back Angel and and then just killing him off. I'm not a fan of bringing back legacy characters just to fucking kill them. It annoys me. And what made it worse, there were some elements of the plot that made no sense. I don't understand. Again, even leaving aside some of the leaps of logic that got Angela to say he was the Bee Harbor Butcher from New Blood, there was stuff that Angel seemed to know solely because we know it, and there's absolutely no way that he could have known. How did he jump to the conclusion that Dexter had anything to do with Rita? Even more damningly, how did he jump to the conclusion that Dexter was in any way responsible for Deb's death? It's like he knows what happened to fucking Deb. The bloody brain surgeon killed her. How did he somehow make these leaps of logic that was somehow Dexter's fault? It makes no sense. It's a case of the writers assuming that the character knows, and assuming that the audience won't notice that the character shouldn't know because the audience knows, and that annoys me. And the other thing was, basically, this is the third time now that, and the laziest and lamest in my opinion as well, the third time now we've had a major character kind of discover Dexter's secret, kind of hunt him down, and then Dexter is let off the hook by having another character kill them. So he's let off the hook of having to kill a good, innocent person that the audience likes by somebody else doing it instead. Now, that was a neat twist the first time that happened in Season 2 with Dokes. When it happened with LaGuerta, it was at least impactful because it was Deb that did it, and it had a huge impact on her going forward, effectively doomed her. This time around, it's the same as Season 2. The villain kills him, so Dexter can just take out the villain, and he's not responsible, and there's no blood on his hands more than usual. We've seen this trope 3 times now, and it's really getting tiresome. If they are carrying on, I know they are. If they do kind of bring back Quinn or Mazuka or whatever, I really hope they're not just bringing them back to do the same fucking thing, because I don't like that at all, and it's getting really lazy now. I'm sorry, but it is. And I have to say again, I think the show really misses Deb. Harrison is kind of mid. I don't hate him, but I'm not particularly interested in him, and he's not as interesting as a kind of grounding character for Dexter as Deb was. I'm sorry, he's just not. So much of the So much of the heart of the original show came from Deb, and without her, it just feels a bit naff and a bit boring. And again, as with New Blood, I really wasn't interested in the majority of the side characters, except now, like the serial killer club. But the other side characters, who cares? I don't care. I'm not interested. This is boring. Again, the show misses Deb. It just does. I'm sorry, it's not the same. Killing her off at the end of season 8 was one of the stupidest things they've ever done, and I know that they thought it was the end of the show and it's probably never going to come back. It was still dumb, man. The show misses her. So this was okay. I mean, I enjoyed it for what it was. I watched it all, unlike Original Sin, and it had some highlights. I'll probably watch season 2 of this Resurrection unless they do something really stupid with it. But you can't help but think that they are kind of milking it at this point, you know. I don't know. I still prefer the original series. That's just me. Anyway, I think this is about a minute or so longer than last year's, but still a long way from the first few were, because I've just not watched that much. Anything I haven't watched? Oh, there is a couple I've forgotten. I'm sorry. Earlier in the year, I don't know if I mentioned this anywhere in any other video, I did pick up on DVD Heart Eyes and The Monkey. I think I mentioned this, but I don't know. Heart Eyes was okay. It was passable. It wasn't as good as some people were making it out to be, but it was okay. The Monkey I thought was incredibly disappointing and incredibly bad. And it's a shame, because I liked the first half hour. I was into the first half hour. It had a nice kind of mix of, you know, absurdity and horror and that, and I was enjoying it. The time jump kind of killed it, particularly when you replaced like the kid, the actor who could actually act, with an adult one playing the same character who was actually less good than the kid. It's not a good look, and it just kind of got really dumb and kind of boring and stupid after that, which is disappointing. Again, I was hoping I'd like it, and I was into it the first half hour. It was working for me, and then they did the time jump, and it was just like it just went right off a cliff after that. So yeah, that's my review of the year 2025. The majority of stuff just doesn't interest me that much these days. I mean, and when it does, half the time I can't get to see them, so it's like, oh. And I'm not that interested that I'm desperate to see them, you know. Especially when you do blind buy a DVD, like something like The Monkey, and you end up with that crap. It's like, really. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy 2026. Talk to you again soon. Bye for now. Comment.